So let's go into our browser and click refresh, and we should, yeah, there we go. So now what we've got is a textual representation or an image representation of our text by using these functions that I've already mentioned. So really it's quite simple if you remember these functions, remember what they do, and also remember the parameters and in which order they go. It hasn't taken me long to learn this. You do forget after a while and you have to sort of refer back to things, but it's generally pretty simple and you get quite a neat output. So this is quite cool. We've got example at example.com. Like I said earlier in the tutorial, I want this to be dynamic. For example, you could keep your generate.php file on your website somewhere and refer back to it every time you wanted to convert, say, a public email address that's going to be displayed to an image. So you want to make this this static variable that we've got here more dynamic. So we want to take user input or input that's going to be processed through our code eventually. So all I'm going to do is modify this and change it to get email. In fact, probably the best thing to do would be to make this a bit more, just a bit more flowing and working properly. I'm going to say if is set $_get email, then set that to email. Otherwise, I want to say echo. Oh no, sorry, I don't want to echo. No. I want to say email equals no email specified. Okay, so what's going to happen now is we're going to check for this get variable, and if so, we're going to put it into the email variable that's going to be used by our program. So we're now working with more dynamic input. Otherwise, the email is just going to equal no email specified. So let's go onto our generate.php and just hit refresh. No email specified. So now what I can do is I can specify the email here, and I can say email equals example, or say example at phpacademy.org, just so we've got a bit of change going on, and you can see that that email address is now written out. So let's try putting some long value in it. So let's just say example at phpacademy.org again, but we'll copy and paste this over and over again, just so we can see how the length of this image changes. Now let's say we were to just specify a width for ourselves. We could, I'm going to cut this so I can use it again later. Let's say a 20, for example. Now let's go into our generate file, and you can see that it's only just giving us a bit of this image. So we're using this function. We're not creating any code for the sake of it. We're doing this so everything is dynamically updated and we don't lose out on any data. And also this also means this also means that what we're doing is we're not wasting any data. I mean, we could say, well, the image width could be 1,000, pixels long, or 10,000 pixels long, or something. But we're only creating it here the size we actually need it. So we're saving up on processing time, and we're saving up on space as well, or rather memory. So now what we need to do is work out how we're going to put this into a form. Now the problem here is, like I said, up here I could say, yeah, I'm going to write email, and what should happen now is it should say email, it should break down a line, and then it should output this image, when in actual fact, when we refresh the page, we get all of this gobbledygook come up. Cannot modify header information, header's already sent in this page, and then we get the literal sort of textual, representation of the JPEG, as if you were to open it up in a text editor. So this looks a massive mess at the moment. And we also can't put output within our code. So I could say, well, after the header, then we can say email and then a break. But if you refresh, you see that nothing comes up now because you've ruined the content of your page. This content type is image JPEG, it's nothing else, no text, nothing. We're just outputting an image and that's it. So how do we go about doing this? Because the image now exists as a PHP file. If you look in here, we're essentially dealing with what's a dynamic JPEG. We've got generate.php and we've got an argument after here, or an input variable after here. So how are we going to insert this, what we've got here, let me just highlight it. No, I can't. So what we're going to do to put this email address inside an actual image on our page, because we can't use this at the moment as it is. Well, that's where index.php comes in, like I mentioned earlier. I'm going to set up a profile page, if you like, with exactly how I do it normally. So, well, I wouldn't do it normally like this, but let's say we've got name, and that equals some dynamic value, so it could be Alex. Then we'll break down a couple more times and we'll say email. We'll break down. Now what we want to do is we want to output this image from generate.php in here. So how are we going to go about doing that? Well, we're going to create an image like we would in an image like we normally would in HTML, and we'd normally say something like image.jpg here, or email.jpg or something. But what we can actually do that you might not already know is we can insert the contents of a file in here, and because generate.php is being processed as an image type, it will actually pick up inside image source as an image itself. So what we can do is we can say generate.php, and what that's going to do now, obviously we haven't specified an image, so this part of our code is going to take action. So let's go ahead and refresh the page, the index page this time, not the generate.php page. So index.php, you can see that we've got name, Alex, and an email, no email specified. So now inside image source, we can now start predefining post or using get variables. So I'm now going to say email equals Alex or example at example.com. And we can refresh, and you can see now we're on our index page, everything's fine, but we now just have a graphical representation of an email address. Now, just a few notes. The whole purpose of this tutorial was being able to create some text as an image in order to maintain some level of security on the website, so this email address cannot be obtained. Now let's go ahead and look at the page source. And you'll see that we've got this image source equals generate.php, email equals example at example.com. Now, there lies a problem in our method because it's flawed. What we actually have now is a text representation of our email address still existing in our code. Now, there's a couple of ways that you can solve this, and I'm not going to do it, but I'm just going to talk about it briefly. If you've dealt with databases and retrieving values from databases, what we could do is we could say email equals, and we could maybe supply a user ID here instead. Now that user ID might correspond to a value in a database in which an email address is stored. In fact, let's go ahead and quickly make an example. We're going to need to connect to our database, but if you've already looked at that, you should be comfortable with this.